Welcome back to the Midlife by Design podcast. I'm your host, Lisai, and I'm a human design teacher, mentor, and alignment coach here to help midlife mavens and mamas use human design to shed others' expectations and be who you came here to be. In today's episode of Midlife by Design, I translate what it means to be a projector. You'll learn how people experience your aura, why invitations help people receive your special genius, tips for parenting and work, and a lot more. So whether you're a projector yourself or whether you love one, tune in to understand how their energy works. Welcome back to Midlife by Design. So today we're talking about projectors, the energy type of projectors. Remember that there are 5 different energy types. We have manifestors, generators, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors. So we have episodes on the first 3, and this is the 4th of the 5 different energy types. And when we're talking about type, we're also referring to the aura. Remember that 6-foot kind of field around you and how that interacts with others. So what makes a projector is that you have no sacral defined, which remember is the square energy center toward the bottom of the chart. It's the second square up from the bottom. So there's no sacral definition, meaning that that center is not colored in. And there's no motor center that's connected to the throat. And it can be a little bit tricky to discern whether you have a motor to the throat or not, because the energy of a motor can travel through another center to get to the throat. But for today's purposes, all you need to know is that there's no motor to the throat. And remember that you can go to my website, lorilisai.com, and just run your chart, and it will tell you your energy type. So projectors have this aura that is penetrating. It's piercing. It pierces into other people's auras and sees them deeply. It's pretty incredible how the projector aura works. It's also super focused. If you can think about yourself as a lighthouse, as a projector, where you're cutting through the fog with the light, and it's easy to see you because you're penetrating it, right? So the other thing that makes the lighthouse a really good analogy is that you are here to guide others. You are here as projectors to not only see them deeply, but also to guide their energy. So projectors are roughly 20% of the population. And they're also here with a unique gift that is meant to be shared with others. So it's really important as a projector to spend your time honing that gift. And if you're not sure what that gift might be, I would encourage you to follow your interests. That's always a really good place to start, because if you are drawn to something, that means it's meant for you, or there's something there for you in that thing. I would also suggest looking at your human design chart for clues, looking at your definition, of course, looking at channels, looking at your sun gate. Those are all really good places to look for things that might indicate what your gift is. Also studying the themes of your life, just sort of looking over the life lived and trying to discern, what do you see for themes that have come up? Are there things that consistently come back around for you or that you return to? And then another thing that you could do to help you discern what this unique gift might be as a projector is to just ask friends or trusted people what they think and see what they see in you. Another thing about projectors' energy type is that they see the big picture, and they're really here to see efficiencies. Sort of similar to manifesting generators, only in a different way. It's like Manifesting generators are here to create efficiency through the doing and the practicing and taking shortcuts and then circling back around. And it's sort of this trial and error process. Versus projectors are really here to see efficiencies from a broader perspective. And they often can just identify them intuitively without really needing to go through the work of creating them. So it's more looking again at that big picture and seeing immediately like, oh, this isn't the way this is supposed to work. Projectors are also designed to be seen, and they are magnetic AF, and they really need to be comfortable with being seen, because that is how their genius is shared with other people, is when people truly recognize what they have for gifts and see them for those gifts and invite them to share those gifts. So if you find yourself as a projector feeling a little uneasy about being seen, then that is a good indicator for you of some work to do, because it's super important to feel comfortable being seen so that you can share your gifts with people. You really are valued for what you see as a projector as opposed to what you do. So understanding that it's not about working in order to be seen and be recognized. Your value is really in what you are able to see in the big picture, and looking at, for example, systems and how they work, and then understanding that maybe they aren't working the best and pointing that out. Again, coming back to the idea of you are really designed to be guiding others' energy as opposed to consistently being the doer. So again, think of yourself as a lighthouse piercing through that fog as a beacon, and people will find you when you're aligned, when you're really pouring your heart and soul into that unique gift. People will automatically just be drawn to you to ask you about it, to ask you to share. And it's important to wait for those invitations, which we'll talk about a little more in just a minute. I want to come back to the non-sacral idea. So as a non-sacral, remember that you are in that 30%-ish of the population that doesn't have that sacral battery. And with other projectors, you're in that 20%. And energy management is just super important as a non-sacral being. So we talk about the amount of time that you should really be spending in things that aren't part of your unique gift, or that are maybe just super draining for you. And that shouldn't really be more than 2 to 4 hours of work a day spent doing things that feel heavy, that feel challenging for you. So it's a really good exercise as a projector to take stock of how you are spending your time, and then see if there's any way that you can start delegating things and spending more time doing the things that you really love to do, or that call on your specific flavor of genius. Because what can happen is burnout. Burnout can happen so easily when you're not paying attention to that. And so understanding what that looks like in your body. How does your body respond when you're feeling burnt out? And just building that relationship with your body so you can understand when enough is enough, because that is a classic lower expression of the sacral, is not knowing when enough is enough and just going and going and going and going until you're flat out, or you get sick, or you're just burnt out. So let's talk for a minute about alignment indicators. For projectors, those are if you are in the not self, meaning you are out of alignment, you are off track, it is time for a redirect, then you are feeling bitterness. And this can happen when you don't feel seen, or when you're working too hard and really forcing things. It can happen when you're hustling as well, which is more the generator type or the manifesting generator. And it can happen when you're not being recognized for your specific genius. So this bitterness feeling, it's just, again, important to understand that it's an indicator. It's like a road sign on the road to alignment. And so you're just looking for, when you feel bitterness, to first become aware of it and then retrace, like, okay, how did I get to this feeling? Why am I feeling this way? And then consider, how can I redirect? How can I get curious here and pivot instead of staying in that bitterness? Let's talk about your signature. So as a projector, your signature, which means that you are in alignment, it's an indicator of, yes, keep going, keep following this. For projectors is success. And how you define success, I think, is important. It doesn't necessarily need to be monetary success. It can just be the feeling of success, like you have felt successful because of X. And I think for projectors, at least the ones that I've spoken to, this feels a little bit different to each of them. So I don't want to put any words out there to describe it, because I want you to think about, what does that feel like? When have I felt success? How can I tap into that more often? And I think what you'll find is that it happens most often when you tune into that gift and you're sharing from that space. It happens when you respond to the right invitations, which come from people who genuinely see you and appreciate your gifts and aren't necessarily seeing something else in you. So let's talk about invitations. Invitations, waiting for invitations, is the strategy of a projector. And remember, strategy is all about, how do we take action in the world? So it may seem counterintuitive to think about, well, taking action is like doing things and waiting is the opposite. But what happens with waiting for invitations is similar to informing with manifestors, is it clears the road for people to then truly accept and be willing to take action on your genius, on what you are sharing. So it's super important for projectors that you are responding to the right type of invitation. So, for example, perhaps one of your gifts is in teaching, and somebody may ask you to come teach a class. However, it might be on something that you are not interested in. Maybe you know some stuff about it, but it doesn't feel aligned with you. And maybe if you're in this situation, you're feeling pressure because whatever, it's going to generate some money for you and you feel like you should do it. So this is where projectors can get off track, the same as like generators could, by doing things that they can, but not necessarily should. This is a similar idea with projectors, except that it's more about the invitation being the right kind of invitation that truly recognizes your gift. So you might be a really good teacher of more esoteric wisdom, but you might not be a great teacher for teaching how to put a bike together. Maybe you ride bikes, but you aren't necessarily well versed in, the mechanics of the bike. And so maybe that person is sensing your ability to teach, but this doesn't align with you. So it's got to be a no. And Write invitations, I would say highlight, put an exclamation point next to if you have a 2 or a 5 in your profile. So if you get your chart printed out, it will tell you what your profile is. But if you have a 2-line or a 5-line, both of those lines come with projections. They have to deal with a projection field, which means that there's a lot of energy going out of people seeing in you what is actually within them or what they want to see. And so this is where really understanding the right invitation for you is important. Another thing I want to share about this invitation idea is that it doesn't have to be verbal. I do know some projectors who have dragged their feet or not taken action because they felt like they didn't get an invitation. And so they would be out of alignment. And here's the thing. Human design is never meant to be something to hold you back. It's never, ever meant to be the kind of system that holds you within certain constraints and does not allow you your own sovereignty. Like it's counterintuitive because it's actually all about sovereignty, and it's about trying to bring you back to how you gain that for yourself. So anytime you're feeling constricted, it's a chance to get curious. Like, am I trying to stay within the confines of something because I feel like it's correct for me, but it actually isn't what my strategy and authority is telling me to do? Always come back to your strategy and authority. But with the invitation, it can be very subtle. Sometimes invitations can be nonverbal. Don't wait for an invitation, though, to create your own thing. And I think social media is such a good example of this. I think some projectors will hold themselves back from posting or from, doing what they want on their own channel because they feel like they haven't gotten some kind of invitation for it. And listen, that is your channel. That is your creative space. That is a place for you to express your genius. And if you want to discern the invitations, you can think about the people coming to your channel or to your account as invitations because they are seeking you out. They have added you as a friend in some way, shape, or form. And so that is an energetic invitation. It's like something that's nonverbal. You're putting it out there. And the invitation just comes when people interact with your posts, when they look for you. So one thing that you might do to kind of discern whether this is something that you've struggled with or not is to reflect on times when you have offered advice or thoughts without invitation versus when you have. And what is the difference there? Have you experienced a difference with how people are accepting of your feedback and accepting and welcoming of the advice that you shared? And I think you'll find probably that when it's invited, it can be super powerful. And I would say that one trick you can kind of use, or a hack, I guess, is asking if you can share your advice or your thoughts. That is an absolutely perfect way as a projector to share your advice, is to say, hey, I have some thoughts. Can I share them? Perfect. If you get a no, then okay, you don't share them and you just keep them to yourself. So this is a great segue into parenting as a projector, because this is where when your kids need advice or when your kids need some guidance, just ask, hey, after we talked about this, I have some ideas. Would you like to hear them? And then your child feels empowered as well to share their ideas. Remember, first and foremost, that you are a non-sacral being. So knowing your children's designs can be a huge help, because if you are a projector parenting sacral beings, yeah, it can be really tiring. And so understanding how to set boundaries, understanding how to communicate with your partner, and then using hacks like, if your kids are young, napping while they nap, taking a bath after they're in bed. If they're older, let them drive while you rest if you're headed somewhere, or ask them to, go pick up the groceries instead of you, that type of thing. Use your projector gifts to verbalize what you see in your children to encourage them in their growth. This is a beautiful thing, this piercing aura that you have. It also tends to mean that you have a class A bullshit detector, so use that. Definitely use that intuitive sense, that aura that can just see right through. And I would also encourage you to reject the hustle and the busyness that tends to take over with families. Setting boundaries will be a beautiful thing to model for your children, and helping them understand what healthy boundaries look like can be one of the gifts that you share with them as a projector. Transitioning to work as a projector, a lot of people in this phase are either questioning their work or shifting into something new, or even retiring from one thing and maybe looking for something else. So I highly encourage you to do something that allows you to use your unique gift if you haven't already. Chances are you have been intuitively doing something related to it, but if you haven't up until this point spent time diving into what this might look like for you, then now is a really wonderful time. Midlife is a beautiful chance for you to get curious about your unique gift, to be able to look back over the years that you have spent and look at those themes in your life and just figure out what is the gift that you have to offer. Also, in work situations, I would encourage you not to chase recognition or validation from others. Let it come to you. So instead of going for the employee of the month or whatever, just be you in your beautiful genius and let that kind of thing come to you. It's not, again, about the hustle. It can be really helpful if you are very specific when you are recognizing others and sharing what you see. So ask people if what you're saying is landing. Remember, also employing that idea of asking if people want to hear the advice. I have some thoughts. Can I share them at a meeting or whatever? But then asking follow-up questions like, what questions do you have about what I shared? And then that will allow you to get even more specific when you're recognizing others and sharing what you see, or if you're looking at efficiencies or whatnot. Use your energy to guide people as much as possible. So whatever role you're in at work, the more that you can use that aura energy to guide others, the better and more aligned you will feel. And then, of course, as a non-sacral, learning to delegate and set boundaries. Ideally, you're working 2 to 4 hours a day on the things that feel heavy, right? That are challenging for you. And you're able to spend the rest of the day in energy that fuels your gift and that recognizes you and that feels good to you. But creating space in your week for rest, whether that means working 3 days, working every other day, working some sort of schedule that is maybe not the typical 9 to 5 or whatever 40-hour work week, that is not meant for projectors. So as a midlife woman, if you are listening to this and you are a projector, then I hope that this has helped you understand more about the way that your energy works and your aura, and to understand truly how unique you are. You are just about 20% of the population. Your genius is truly in seeing people and in seeing how we can just, in general, make things better. So I invite you to drop a comment below if you're watching on YouTube, if you are a projector, and share your experience. That would be amazing. And if you're listening, then thank you so much for listening. Thank you for tuning in to Midlife by Design. Please remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts so that more midlife mavens and mamas can find us. And hey, if you want to understand more about how your human design works, then I invite you to dive deeper by booking a session with me. I'll leave the link in the show notes. And as I sign off, I'm wishing you the joy you deserve, the determination to live out your purpose, and the clarity to be who you came here to be.